It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's program, which promises to be an exciting and timely discussion about how women can be more influential in the workplace. My name is Meredith Weiss, and I'm president-elect of one of USC's newest alumni organizations, Society of Trojan Women. Does anybody know Society of Trojan Women in the group? Okay. We have some board members in here. Would you raise your hands, please? So if you're near a board member and you want to know more about Society of Trojan Women, they're the people to ask. Society of Trojan Women, if you're not completely familiar with us, is a USC alumni community created to support and connect multi-generational Trojan women, lifelong and worldwide. STW hosts events that are meant to help us develop professionally and personally, help build friendships, which hopefully some of us are doing right now, and support, empower, and connect USC through student scholarships. We've been around for about 3 years, and in our 3 years, we've done some important things. We've endowed 2 scholarships, thanks to the work of a lot of you from our legacy group, so we're very thankful for that. We've also been able to involve over 1,000 people on Facebook, thanks to Michelle and Eileen's work on social media. We've engaged over 2,000 women through online, virtual, and in-person events, and we've been doing workshops, social, and service events that hopefully a lot of you have also attended. So in 3 years, we've done a lot, but we're hoping to continue that momentum going forward. What makes us a little bit different? We're not a membership-based group, which is a little bit of a different concept for an alumni organization here at SC. The whole concept is that we have a lot going on. We're all busy people, right? So whether you have a big, busy work schedule or you have an intense home life, it's hard to want to commit to anything else above and beyond that. And we get it because all of us are in the same position. So we try to make this group designed to fit into the life that you're already leading and give you an opportunity to meet other Trojan women. So that's what STW is all about. If STW is of interest to you, again, there's board members around, and you're welcome to come up and talk to me about it as well. On to the most important thing that's going on now, is that we have a speaker in here we're going to be listening to. Tonight's program is going to be building on some past programs that maybe you've attended. Negotiating for Women last year. Does anybody attend Negotiating for Women? Okay. Office politics last year, or a couple weeks ago in Orange County, one of our first Orange County events. So we're building upon that similar theme, professional development. Tonight's program is going to be recorded, so if you see the camera in the back, that's why he's here. And the whole point of that is that we are going to be able to share this content online with people who maybe weren't able to make it tonight. So if you have friends who weren't able to be here, in about a week or so, we'll share it online and you can share it with them. Now, I would like to introduce Sharí Alexander to the stage. Sharí is a persuasiveness coach, and she's known for bringing the dark arts of influence to light. Yes, we're gonna have some fun. She has personally learned the best persuasive triggers and techniques from master influencers, including CIA field agents, hostage negotiators, interrogators, trial attorneys, and undercover law enforcement. Her mission is to put these powerful skills in the hands of entrepreneurs and leaders so that they can effectively bring positive influences to their businesses. Sharí is certified in neuro-linguistic programming, micro-expressions, and body language. Her clients include CEOs, politicians, professional athletes, news commentators, and New York Times bestselling authors. Sharí is also a regular contributor to Entrepreneur, and she's a guest lecturer here at SC. So clearly we are very lucky to have Sharí with us today, so would you please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you very much for that very warm welcome. Can everybody hear me through the mic? Okay, are we rocking and rolling? Awesome. So today's presentation is about perspective and action. Influence and influential communications require a shift in perspective, but then it also requires you to take action, to find flexibility in your communication. So before we get into the meat of the program, I want you to take a moment and I want you to check in real quick. Feel the food digesting a little bit, feel the booze kicking in a little bit. And I want you to check in and close your eyes and think of a few people. First, I want you to think of somebody you care about very much, somebody you love. This could be a husband, this could be a wife, this could be a child, somebody who's very close to your heart. Next, I'd like you to think of somebody who gets under your skin, who bugs you just by their presence. Think of that person. And next, I would like you to think about somebody who could do something for you. This could be that they could give you a promotion. This could be that they could give you a sale. It could be that they could give you a discount on your next car purchase. Somebody who could do something to help you out. And if you have a pen with a paper in front of you, write down those 3 names, just as a refresher for later. All right. So as we go through the program, I want you to keep those 3 people in mind, that you will learn a technique here or a perspective here that will improve your relationship with somebody that you love, with somebody that can do something for you, or with that person that is your arch nemesis. That in some way we can improve that relationship and move things forward. Sound good? All right. So obviously with a 45 to 60-minute program, I can't share every single thing that I know about influential communications. Understood? Right. All right. So this is sort of the best of hits that we're going to go through. But as we move along, there is going to be time for Q&A. So please feel free to be jotting down your questions. I rock out Q&A like it's what I was made to do. So any question that you come up with, definitely write it down and we'll want to catch it at the end. All right? Perfect. Welcome, says Meredith. Thank you very much. That was great. And this is me, Sharí Alexander. Yes, I know it looks like Sherry, but there's an accent. It's my parents' fault, not mine. I am on the social medias and the internets. So if you're one of those people who like to Twitter or Facebook or put up a video, yes, please tag me. I'm pretty much Sharí Alexander everywhere. And that would be super awesome, swell, super dupers. All right. Can you tell me what this is? It's the apple sign, right? What's wrong with it? It's upside down. Why is it upside down? Does anybody know? Somebody said it? Perspective. When did Apple have the upside down apple? I see you don't remember this too well. It happened when they first launched we got a few head nods now. It happened when they first launched their first laptops. What they did was when the laptop is closed, and you can see an example right here in the background, somebody's typing away notes, awesome. When that is closed, it's upside down to her. So when Apple first launched, they made the Apple face the user. But the problem is that when it's open and the rest of the world is looking at their brand, the apple was upside down. Oops. This is where communication begins. How does somebody else see your message? Not how you see it, not how you want to see it, not how they should see it of, well, they know it's the apple. They could flip it upside down in their head. They know it's apple. No. How do they see it? And then once you understand how they see what you're presenting to them, now you can work within those parameters and find your influential triggers. So one thing that we all probably instinctively know, but let's go ahead and share a few studies that have reinforced this, that as you get higher and higher in your career, the more important communication becomes. From the floor manager up to VP level, up to C-suite, every single time your role is rated by your employees, your board, your coworkers, that role distinctly becomes more important and more weighted by your communication. So today, hopefully you'll be learning quite a few techniques and perspectives that will help raise your communication so that you can raise your career. Sound good? Awesome. So the three main steps, as you heard Meredith mention before, is I have had the great pleasure, fortune, and honor of learning influential communications from individuals like CIA agents, and not only the domestic CIA agents, but the spies, but also MI6, MI5, which is Britain's version of the CIA, and the Mossad in Israel, and a few others, as well as military intelligence officers, so kind of like the CIA-ish in the different military branches, as well as con artists and some pickup artists. Those were fun. And who else? Hostage negotiators and trial attorneys. So in this presentation today, I'll give you the best perspectives or the best lessons I've learned from each of those individuals. But overall, the main thing that I learned from every single one of them was they all follow the same process. What? From a con artist to a CIA agent, they follow the same process. Get out. They call it different words, and of course, I certainly don't want to equate a federal agent to a con artist. That's not my intention. No, I mean, I have a high level of respect for those individuals, the federal agents, not the con artists. But over time, I really thought during my research, like, oh, I'll learn this one tip from this person, I'll learn one tip from this person, then I'll figure it out and put it all together. They've already done it. They have it down, they just call it different things. They give it different names, but it's the same process, and this is the process. It's 3 steps. Influence, 3 steps. Who knew? Now you know. It starts with observe, second is connect, third is influence. There's a few things that this graph shows you, even though it is highly simple. If you look at this as an iceberg, the bulk of your work is observation. The bulk of your work is by saying nothing at all. Usually, when people think about influence, they think about how am I going to say the right thing, how am I going to intonate in the right way, articulate. The bulk of your work is with observation, paying attention to your mark. And so therefore, the bulk of this presentation will be about that. Your second step is then, oh, and by the way, your mark is my shorthand way of saying the person you're trying to influence. Just makes it faster for me. The second step is to connect, to build rapport with that person, to have some sort of relationship with them in order to get closer to your yes. And then at the tip of the iceberg, which most people see, they don't see all this other stuff. But the tip of what they do see is influence. And those are what I call your home run hitters, your closing techniques, the thing that actually gets you to the yes. But without these first 2 steps, and if you attempt to use those techniques up at influence without the foundation, then what you're trying to do is take a leap up to the top. And if you think of these as stair steps, if you try to leap up to the 3rd step, okay, you could be really good at a vertical jump. You could make it. You could get that yes. But you're putting yourself at a little bit more risk. You could miss and hurt yourself, and you're putting the other person at risk. You could miss and bring them down with you. So the easiest process is 1, 2, 3. Just take the simple stair steps. If you try to reach influence and you don't know how to, or you don't know the triggers, then you have to start back at step 1. Simple as that. If you feel like you want to reach influence, but you don't feel like you have that rapport, then you're at step 2. Easy peasy. All right. So the first main foundational tenet that we have to get across is that influence is communication with a goal. So communication is, I'm speaking, you understand what I'm saying, it registers in your conscious brain, and it files things away, and it disregards some other stuff. That's communication, where I am the giver of the communication, you are the receiver of the communication. Job done. But to be influential, you have to have a goal attached to your communication. What do you want out of this? What does that look like? So you have to be a good communicator to be an influencer, but just because you're a good communicator doesn't mean that you're an influencer. So this comes to the first lesson from the pickup artist. Don't you just love it when a man serenades you with an accordion? I think there's something so sweet about that. Those were the good old days, eh, ladies? So our first lesson comes from the pickup artists. Having a very clear intention. They know when they are you guys familiar with the pickup artist world at all? Kind of sort. Okay. In a nutshell, let me explain it to you. In the 90s, there was this subculture that was created of socially awkward men who wanted to, let's just call a spade, get laid. And they found a group of men who were very good at accomplishing this goal. And so they learned from these men, and from that became this underground community of this guy taught that guy, which taught that guy, and then they held their own workshops and everything. And so all of a sudden, these socially awkward men kind of got more or less some social skills in order to achieve their goal. That's basically what it came out to. It turned out to be very smarmy for quite a while. Now it's actually developed into a very interesting industry for men to help them build those social skills to be able to show people their best effort rather than being too concerned and constricted. So it's actually turned into, over quite a bit of time, to something helpful, I feel. But back in the day, not so much. And the first lesson I learned from them is to have a very clear intention. They know when they walk into the club what they want. I want 20 phone numbers by the end of the night. I want 3 dates scheduled for tomorrow. I want to take home 2 girls tonight. They know what they're going after. And that's what helps them be more successful with what they're trying to do. So how do you set your own clear intention? You want to state it in the positive. So with every lesson, I'm going to give you an action. Here's your first action. Is if you're trying to be influential, first have your influential intention. And that begins by stating in the positive, meaning that say what you want, not what you don't want. People are usually very, very clear about, I don't want to hear no, I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to look like a fool, I don't want to, not get that raise. They have that picture so clear in their mind. But when you ask them what they do want, well, I just want them to agree with me. Over so that you can? What does that look like? So state it in the positive. And to help you, ask yourself, what will that feel like? What will that look like? What will I hear them say? So get clear. It's basically visualization. What is it that I want as the outcome? And the clearer you are about that outcome, you can be clear about the tactics you choose to get that outcome. Next one is that it's proactive and achievable. Basically, it means that this is within your realm of possibility. I would like, Obama to do quite a few things in the White House. That's not terribly achievable right now for where I'm at and who I know and my connections. So that is not going to be an influential intention that I set. However, a relationship with a client, that is something achievable. Figuring out how to have a better relationship with a coworker, that is something achievable. So make sure that it's not too, and this is also, you have to feel your way through this. You have to feel like, yeah, I can do that. Awesome. All right? And the next one is, get ready for it, no nominalizations. Say that 5 times fast. Anybody know what a nominalization is? It's one of my favorites. Okay. So a nominalization is a linguistic loophole that we run into. It's a shortcut that we use. And it's when we apply a name to a thing or a noun that isn't a tangible thing. It's a concept. So the noun is a concept. For example, a perfect workplace nominalization is productivity. I want you to be more productive. Okay. So send 1 more email a day? That's a perfect example of a nominalization. To identify if you're using a nominalization, ask yourself, can I put it in a wheelbarrow? That's the easiest way to figure out, is this a tangible thing? Can you put productivity in a wheelbarrow? No. Can I put checklist filled with checks on a daily basis? Yes, I can. Can I put in a wheelbarrow, more metaphorically speaking, the number of emails or phone calls I want to be made? Yes, you can. So usually where people go wrong in trying to be influential is they're using the shortcut version of what they know productivity is and assuming that the person that they're talking to is seeing the apple upright. But the apple's upside down because you're seeing it from your perspective, not theirs. So be specific. What does it mean? Another perfect nominalization is health. I know we have a few doctors in the room. Health, you cannot put in a wheelbarrow. Certain number of pounds lost, certain number of, this is where I go way outside of my expertise, but like blood pressure numbers and what does health mean? Being able to walk up a certain flight of stairs without feeling like you're gonna die. That's our parameters for health. So make sure that apple is upright. The next one is a lesson from the con artists. So this one is a bit heartbreaking at first, but stick with me, and it's going to become heartwarming near the end. So at our core, as human beings, we want to feel seen. We want to feel recognized. And we want to feel validated. At our core, this is what we need. We are pack animals. We want to be seen as a significant part of the pack. Here's the thing. We all are actively craving this, and very few of us are actively giving it. The reason why con artists are so successful at what they do is because they know this fact. They know this truth, that everybody has this hole inside of them saying, I just want to be seen, I just want to be heard, I just want to be understood. And the con artist knows that ain't nobody doing it for that person. So I'll swoop in and I'll fill them up and then screw them over. This is how we give con artists power. We give them more power by not actively taking a moment to say thank you, to not actively say, I hear what you're saying, to not actively validate somebody, to not actively see them, hear them for who they are rather than who you want them to be or who they should be or whatever alignment you want within your own paradigm of the world. So your action step is twofold. First, take a look at that list. Write down something that you can appreciate or validate for each of those people. Yes, even the one you can't stand. What can you appreciate about them? What do you see in them? Or even take a moment to just be with that person. No cell phones, no computers, let's go get a drink and just be. Find those opportunities. Your next action step and specific technique is the hourglass technique. Now, this is used by con artists and CIA operatives and hostage negotiators. This one, and quite a few of the techniques, like I said, they all use the same system, so it's going to overlap a little bit with what I've learned from everybody. But this one is the hourglass technique, and basically the philosophy or the understanding is that we as human beings remember occurrences at their beginning and at their end with greater clarity of detail and emotional connection than we do the middle of that conversation or that event. It's one reason why stand-up comedians know that they should start strong and finish strong in their sets. It's one reason why movies begin with big, wild explosions and end in a tearjerker, and the plot goes wonky in the middle, because they know you're not going to remember that later on. Maybe by the third viewing, you might catch a few things. So, applying this to us, you can use the hourglass technique by focusing on connecting with your mark at the beginning of every interaction you have with them, especially your influential conversation when you sit down and have that specific request, and at the end. So you're focusing on rapport. How can I make sure that I'm in tune with this person at the beginning and the end? And then your influential discussion will happen in the middle. Reason being is because they will remember how they feel about you with greater clarity based off of your beginnings and endings, which means that the power of how they perceive you is in your hands. Are you consciously using this to your advantage? Without rapport, you have not earned the right to influence somebody. Without rapport, you have not earned the right to influence someone. Then it gets more manipulative, then it gets more coercive, and then it gets, quite frankly, more rude, and your influential success rate, and then they won't like you because they didn't like you when you asked, because you didn't put in the effort. Okay? Next is the lesson from the hostage negotiators. And the basic lesson that I learned from them is influential communication is flexibility. Having flexibility in your style, in your presentation, in your vocabulary, and your emotional flexibility. Can you be compassionate rather than judgmental? Can you understand, or can you tap into your fun, wild, crazy side, if that's your norm? But then can you also tap into your quiet, solemn, understanding place? The basic thing here is that you have different people inside of you. Right now, you are the attentive audience person. Quiet, bit reserved, contemplative. It's wonderful. When you go home, if you have a puppy, you are the I'm a puppy owner person. Oh my gosh, hi. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you too. I love you so much. I love you so much. But when somebody says, can you just like let loose and have fun? No. I'm quiet, I'm reserved. But what happened to puppy person? You do have that in you. It's, are you able to consciously tap into those different emotional states to use them to your advantage, to leverage them? So the first lesson here is to stay curious. Stay curious. You cannot influence somebody you are judging. This is huge, you guys, especially with that arch nemesis on your list. You cannot influence somebody you are judging because you have put them in a box. You have your triggered emotional state. Now do what I want. It's not going to work. And this is particularly true with hostage negotiators. Somebody has made a terrible decision in their life. They have taken other human beings and put them under threat. How can you not judge this person? What are you, a freaking idiot? Of all the choices you had in your life, you thought, oh, yeah, I'll do this one. The hostage negotiator is feeling that just as much as everybody. But the hostage negotiator can't let that be said, can't let that be felt, can't let that be heard, because he or she knows that the second that they let that judgment through, then your mark has now put up a wall. Well, forget you. I'm going to do what I want. And because I don't like you, I'm going to stick to this decision even more so. And that's when lives are lost. So what the hostage negotiator has to do is start to be curious and get rid of that judgment, of being able to tap into that compassion of, I understand, if I were in that situation where your wife took your kids and all this horrible stuff and losing money and the people are coming after you, I understand, I get it. But look, let's look at the situation as it is now, because what you're going to do in these next few moments will dictate the rest of your life and the rest of these people's lives. Let's work together. That's influence. Influence is a give and take. People don't usually see it that way. They think, oh, influence, that's me putting my will on somebody else. It's interactive. It's cooperative. So your specific action step is to check your state. I want you to see every single doorway that you walk through as a checkpoint of what energy am I bringing into this room? Who am I choosing to be in this new space where I put my presence? Because often, especially with that arch nemesis of yours, you are anticipating that negative energy, and it's building up, and you're walking closer to the doorway, and it's building up, and it's building up, and it's like, I'm here. And they pick that up. There's this beautiful thing, I'm not going to give too much of a tutorial on it, but a beautiful thing known as mirror neurons in our brains. And we haven't quite figured out entirely what they do, but we do know that the one way that we learn is by observing and mimicking. At a certain age, if you stick your tongue out at a little baby, they'll stick their tongue out back. They're mimicking. And so therefore, we are wired to pick up on and mimic what we observe. So if you're bringing in this energy, guess what you're going to get in return? And you wonder why they keep doing what they keep doing. So look at your checkpoints. Every time you walk through that doorway, what energy am I bringing into this? Be what you want to see. That is the function of our mirror neurons. Be what you want to see. If you want to see compassion, be compassionate. If you want to see excitement, honey, you got to get pumped up first. That's just the way it works. If you want quiet, you have to be quiet. You can't say, just shut up a second. That doesn't make sense. Be what you want to see. The next lesson is from the trial attorneys. And I was shocked by this one. So I interviewed the best trial attorneys. I didn't just go out willy-nilly and, meet any ambulance chasers or anything. The people that I interviewed have high success rates with all of their trials. And one thing that I learned from them is that every single one had this strong philosophy about the voir dire process. Do we have any attorneys in the room? Just one? Great. So you're familiar with voir dire. I'll give a quick tutorial of what that is. It's basically jury selection. It's the process where the prosecutor and the defending attorney have the opportunity to interview the jurors, ask a certain number of questions, and decide, I want to keep that person has to go. But during that process, it's more than just a Q&A. It's that they're reading the body language of the jurors. They're trying to figure out what their current preconceived notions are and their perspectives, and figure out if they have any biases already to this particular situation or to this particular defendant. Also, little do most people know that the best trial attorneys are paying attention to their personal rapport with the jurors. Because one thing that has been proven over and over and over in studies is that how a jury feels about the prosecutor or the defending attorney, or specifically the defending attorney, is that how they feel about them translates to their client. If I don't like the attorney, I don't like your client. If I like the attorney, I'll be more forgiving to the client. I think, he or she's an okay dude, chick. So they are looking for, am I the right person to influence these jurors? Can I get that quicker rapport, or do I have to really work on it? And then that translates also to their opening statements. The trial attorneys will not only talk a bit about their client and the trial, they'll also talk about themselves, about their family or their personal life, to build that rapport. I know one trial attorney in Iowa who had basically the same opening statement over and over, and all the other attorneys knew, like, oh, there goes Joe again, giving that opening statement. But it worked because he knew how to pick the jurors and he knew how to connect with them. So translating this to you, sometimes you have to ask yourself, am I the right person to persuade this mark? It's a little bit twofold. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, is this the right mark, or should I go find a better one? And the second, and this also is something I learned from the agents, is that when an agent is assigned a mission to turn an asset, they have to figure out, am I the right person for this asset, or is somebody else on my team correct? And they sometimes have the option to swap out. It's a process, but it does happen. So if you have a sales team, maybe you're not the right person for that client. This is when influence gets introspective, where you're not just looking out, you have to look in. And you have to suspend that ego for just a little bit. Is the goal, is the cause more important than my ego? If the answer is yes, then get another influencer. Find another mark. There's no shame in it. It means that you have a better chance of achieving that goal. Next is from the CIA agents. And this was a big one, is that influence, folks, it's a team sport. Who knew? Because when you think of an influencer, you think of a solo individual talking to another person or a group of people. They're doing all the work. Nope. They have a team of people. Agents have handlers, which is somebody that it's their confidant, their influential confidant, somebody that they can talk to and figure things out and talk out like what they observed about their mark and what, different things that they're going to try out and being able to bounce off those ideas. They have Langley as well. Con artists talk to other con artists. They love learning off of each other and like sharing their little trade secrets. Trial attorneys have other trial attorneys and their firm. Hostage negotiators have the rest of the police department and other hostage negotiators they can call. So who's on your team? Who is somebody that you can turn to and talk it out? That's your action item. Who's your influential confidant? Obviously, that's the role that I play for my clients, is that I am the person that they can come to with their sales struggles, with their leadership struggles. That's the service that people like myself, coaches, that's what we do. But one thing that you can do within your business and in your community, it can be your husband that you can bounce ideas off. Ideally, you want it to be somebody who knows enough about the mark that you can get more in-depth feedback. All right, so that concludes the first section of what I learned from the main people that I talked with. The next section is influential vibes. So as we talked about before, the 3 steps are observation, connection, and then influence. So people often ask, well, what do I observe? And there's 5 main things that you're going to be looking for, and that's the influential vibes. Obviously, there is so much more that you can learn. There's body language, there's changes in language and metaphor usage. So I just want you to know that this is your foundational observational path. And of course, if you have questions later, just let me know, all right? So the first one, V, stands for vibes, and V stands for values. Values are basically at the core of our human operating system. We all have a core set of values, and they differ from person to person. So things that people value can be family. Another thing that somebody could value is success. Sometimes those values collide. Do I choose family over success? Do I choose success over family? And that is where so much of our own internal turmoil comes from. So basically, all of these vibes I'm going to share with you are more or less spokes off of those values. They're little different iterations, but more observable from these values. But think for a moment, what do you value? And you can write it on your piece of paper. We won't have time to do a little popcorn, but again, you can bring it up during the Q&A. Different things that you can value are community, money, freedom, looks or vanity, fitness, health, finances, shelter, home life. And that's just a small, off-the-hip list. There's tons of values, and feel free to Google, or I can send the values list if you want and send it out later, of things that you can value. Usually we're more clear about what we value, but do you ask yourself, what does my mark value? Do they value these same things? Typically, what you'll discover is your arch nemesis is the exact polar opposite of your values. You value freedom. They value stability. You value creativity. They value tradition. And then that's where the relationships collide. But understanding what they value means that you can now figure out leverage points when you talk with them of, I understand how important tradition is to you. And even though this seems like an off-the-wall creative thing, let me show you other areas which this has been successful. So what I've done is I've taken the thing that I'm trying to convince them of and wrapped it around the thing that they value. Your core message is that present that you're wanting to give them. What you put that message in, that wrapping paper, determines if they even want that gift. If I give you a Tiffany's ring, let's say, and I put one in a paper bag and I put one in the Tiffany's box, which one will you choose? You don't know what's inside. I'll take that pretty blue black box, please. I'll take that. Because you have to figure out what is going to be most appealing to them, and the values are your key to that. I had a client who had so much success with this. He works in the government. He's not in the intelligence world. He makes machines. That's pretty much all I can say about that. And he was struggling so much with his boss. He really wanted to he had a new boss, he really wanted to connect with him, and it just wouldn't work. It seemed like every way that he tried the project didn't jive, and his boss would ignore him. He was like, I just don't know what to do. And this client I'm referring to is a part of a group coaching program I have called Influence HQ. So every other Wednesday, we have a group coaching call. So he'd regularly bring these up on the calls. And so after he learned about the vibes, he said, you know what? He has a military background. And I noticed that he really values process and hierarchy and chain of command. And so I started presenting my project ideas like that it had, rather than the big picture and the creativity of this thing that I was trying to propose to him, I started using a little bit more process and hierarchy and chain of command and telling him that his higher up would really like this. 6 weeks later, he got a promotion. That's how fast it can happen. The next one in the vibes is identifiers. This one can be most easily summed up in a Maya Angelou quote that I absolutely love. And she regularly would say, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Now, typically she referred to this in like relationships, like if somebody's in a bad relationship, and if the man would say like, oh, you know, I'm just no good for you. But the woman would ignore it, like, no, baby, it's okay. You know, I still love you. We can work on it. And that's what usually Maya Angelou referred to is when someone tells you who they are, I'm no good for you, believe them. This also can translate into influence. Basically, anytime somebody identifies themselves, if they start a sentence with the words, I am, whatever they finish it with, you now know their self-perception. You know what it's like in their world, which is basically the world that we're trying to get into as influencers. Tell me your rules of operation and how you see the world, and then I'll figure out how to present this concept to you. And I guarantee right now you might not be thinking like, oh, I don't know anybody who does that. I don't know anybody who says like who they are or what they think. Once you leave this program today, you will hear it all the time. And it's one of the greatest things to do when you're really bored. Rather than picking up your phone and looking what's on Facebook, start paying attention to these vibes. And start counting how many identifiers you can hear in a conversation. I was really bored one night with some friends. They were just talking about things that I didn't care about. And I had finished my burger, so I didn't have that to focus on anymore. So I thought, okay, I'll turn on my observation antenna. I'll just play my influencer game. And within 15 minutes, I heard 12 identifiers from 3 different people. They told me who they are. They told me when they're most productive. They told me their perspective on how they approach work and what they like and their preferences and how they see themselves in their physical fitness, like, oh, I'm so fat right now. We hear that regularly. This is how they see themselves. Or I just don't get along with people who, that's a huge one. I just don't understand people who, and whatever that end of the sentence is, the exact opposite is what your mark values. I don't understand people who neglect their kids and decide to work 12 hours a day. So their nemesis chooses work life, and your mark values family more. Great. Now I have my playbook on how to influence you when I need. So the technique that you can attach with the identifiers is the half and half technique. It's pretty simple and straightforward. The simple version of it goes that if you start the beginning of your sentence with something that your mark naturally, knee-jerk reaction agrees with, then they are more likely to agree with the rest of your sentence. So they have shown that even if the first part of your sentence is something that is so obvious, it still works. So for example, if I were trying to sell you a women's clothing line, I would say, as a woman, I know that you appreciate what it means to look good and feel good at the same time, and this designer has created this line specifically for that. So the beginning part of as a woman was the first half of the half and half technique. I'm just identifying her as a female. Didn't take a lot of work on my part. It also could be somebody's position. As the VP of learning, I know that you understand the importance of what it means to keep your workforce educated and on top of what's new in the industry. I designed this program specifically for that. That it's not going to be old, tired news. It's new and cutting edge. So the first half of that sentence was their job title. Didn't take much effort on my part. Now, if you want to go deeper and make it even more successful, you tie in that first half to what they value. As somebody who values family life, I think you're really going to love this work balance program training that we're bringing to the workspace. As someone who is basically how you begin it, and then tack in that value, tack in that identifier, and any of the other vibes that you pick up. Your statement increases its influential capacity. Warp speed. That analogy didn't quite work because warp speed is a speed thing rather than capacity. I don't know. Trekkies, you can figure it out for me. All right. The next one is beliefs. Now, I will tell you right now, this is usually the more difficult one for people to get, so I'm not going to dive too deep in this, but again, the beliefs is a spin-off of the values. The values are the core essentials, the core operating system of how we see the world. The beliefs are what we build off of those values. It's the if this then that scenario, or the if this then that rules we apply to things. One example, if my husband doesn't kiss me goodbye in the morning, he's mad at me. That you believe that physical touch is so important that if it's taken away, relationships on red alert. That's an example of your beliefs. So tying this to your mark, again, if you pay attention, if you listen to what they talk about other people, he came in pretending like he knew everything and he didn't want to bring me into the team, so I'll just let him take care of it. Can't blame me. If somebody doesn't include me, then I bow out. Based off of those actions and those descriptions, that's the rule book that they have created for their life. All right? The technique that you can apply to this, it's a little bit of a spin with it, but is the expectancy effect. It's the expectancy effect technique. And basically, in a moment, you are implanting a belief. It's kind of the simple way of putting it. So the expectancy effect goes like this. When you first sit down with somebody, you implant the idea of who you want them to be in this scenario. So for example, if somebody has connected you with a colleague and this is your first sit down, you can say, so happy we finally got to meet. Joe told me that you are an absolutely fabulous, wonderful person. In fact, he said that you're such a forward thinker and you see things before everybody else does, and you're so interested in that learning side of human potential and capability. I think that we're just going to have a ball talking today. You have given them who you want them to be in this scenario, and it's put in a complimentary way. So figure out, you can also be what you want to see, but then you can also, through this technique, tell them who you want them to be. It's also a little bit of framing and priming are other words that you could use for this, but think clearly of what is the mindset that I want from this person in this moment. Do I want them to be creative? Do I want them to be detailed and strategic? Do I want them to be compassionate? And then how can you prime that conversation? Your next one is the emotional triggers. And basically, we are Pavlov's dogs. You know, when Pavlov rang the bell and then the dog started salivating? Yeah, we're basically like that too. Our brain is constantly trying to be the most efficient it possibly can. And it's trying to make those neural networks stronger and quicker and faster so that way it can take things easier. It's more efficient, doesn't create as much energy. So, which means that we have triggers, every single one of us, some little thing that puts us in a good mood. Like chocolate. Oh, thank you, chocolate, for being so wonderful in my life. Somebody brings a little piece of chocolate before a conversation, it's going to be a good conversation. Figuring out those emotional triggers in your mark. What puts them in a good mood? It could be food of some sort. It could be a certain smell. It could be a topic like their kids. For some people, topic of their kids puts them in a negative state. You have to be aware of that. Because again, we often, this is another important point that's not in the slides, we influence others how we want to be influenced. So if we want to put somebody in a good mood, we'll talk about our kids because that puts us in a good mood. But not everybody gets in a good mood with that topic. So pay attention to how others try to influence you because that's how they want to be influenced. So pay attention to their positive emotional triggers as well as their negative emotional triggers. Because sometimes, especially in sales, if you're trying to really pitch an idea, you need to take them down emotionally into really recognizing the pain of this situation, how bad it really is, to then bring them up to the solution. Because oftentimes if they haven't grounded in that pain in that moment, it's very easy for them to just sweep it under the rug and go, oh, it's not that bad. I don't need to pay for that. No, we don't need that program. We don't need that initiative. It's not that bad. So you really have to anchor that in. Which leads us to the next technique, is anchoring. So be aware of, this is probably the most advanced technique that I'm giving you guys today. So if you don't get it right away, it's okay, but I want you to realize what is possible. Is when you get somebody in their heightened state, in a good mood, pay attention to how you can anchor that. And there's different ways that you can. So you could say that's so wonderful. I love that. And every time that they hit that peak and you snap your fingers, they associate that subconsciously, that snap, with that happy state. So then once you build that into them, then when you want to present an idea, you go, I have a great idea for you. Oh, all right. So other things that you can do is you can click a pen, you can slap your leg oh, I love it when you say that. You can touch them on the shoulder. Again, this is advanced and there's a lot of timing to it, but this is what's possible. It's being conscious of your actions and their actions and making the dance happen. The last of the 5s is the secret goals and dreams. So I'll wrap up with this one and then we'll go into Q&A. The secret goals and dreams, I say secret because it sounds sexier. Really and truly, sometimes people tell you their goals and dreams. So they're stated goals and dreams. So secret and stated both apply. So when somebody tells you who they want to be, figure out how you can support it. This goes back to the wanting to be recognized and validated. Oftentimes, when people share their dreams, when they say, I want to travel Europe for a year, and then somebody who doesn't value travel and doesn't value dreams goes, why? And that's how we squash that validation. And so we stop sharing those dreams. But when an influencer hears those words, they go, oh, all right, make a note. Let me see if I can figure out who they want to be, and let me see if what I am presenting them with can help them achieve that in some way. Let me see if there's an alignment there. And also, with the secret goals and dreams, or with your technique here, or the call to action, is appeal to their higher self. We all have that superhero inside of us, that person that we are still striving for, that person that we know we can be. And influencers appeal to that person. Not the person who's right in front of them, but the person that is wanting to get out. That's who you're talking to. And when you appeal to that person, they like being around you because you have given them the permission and the safe place to think that that's possible. Good for you. This is where the dark arts of influence come into light. This is where we take the power from the more covert individuals and bring it back into our everyday life. And lastly with this, I also put the word significance up here, and it's a little bit of a spin on that, is everybody wants to feel significant in the process. So typically when you've seen somebody lose motivation, lose productivity, it's because they no longer feel important in the process. What does it matter? I don't care. Nobody else cares. So you have to remind them of how they are a part of the bigger picture. The best companies in the world, Google, Amazon, every single person knows how they fit in the grand machine that we are creating, the bigger picture. So remind them of that bigger picture. This is also where your communication culture becomes even more important. So that's the last of the vibes. I will go ahead and move into Q&A. We have some mics that I know if people can grab those. Few things, feel free to ask about, I know we talk primarily about professional. All of these things apply to personal as well. We are human beings. So if you want to ask something personal, I'm game for that as well. So
first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This has been a really interesting topic, so I'm really excited. Do you have any recommendations for books or resources online if we want to learn more or go deeper into understanding?
Yeah, great. So the Bible of influence is Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. And he talks about the seven techniques. He's a sociologist out of Arizona, great guy. It's the ultimate book on influence, basically, until mine comes out. And so the main things that he discusses, I specifically did not discuss today because people are a bit more familiar with them now. He wrote the book in the 80s, I want to say. So he covers things like scarcity, that if you make something seem scarce, people want it more. He covers things like reciprocity, that if I give you something, if I give you a favor, you owe me something in return, and how we're wired for something like that. He talks about how likability is important. One of the best influential techniques you can do is smile. Because again, remember those mirror neurons? If we see a pleasant face, if we see a smiling face, we smile back. See, I smiled and about half the room started smiling back. And also, if it helps, studies have shown that when you smile, you are perceived to be more attractive and more intelligent. So smile more often. Other books or online resources. The online resource that I have is, like I mentioned before, Influence HQ. It's a monthly program. It's 2 calls a month. In fact, our next class is tomorrow. One is a master class where I do something similar to this. I delve deep into different techniques. And then the other call a month, like I mentioned, is a group coaching call. And if you're interested in that, feel free to come to me after the program. And also, if you guys are interested in any other kind of continuing education, either for you individually or other speeches or organizations, just come up to me afterwards, exchange business cards, and we'll jam later. Do you mind taking the mic just for the people watching the video later?
Who you love, who you don't like,
Yep.
and whom you go to for help.
Yep.
What about the middle person where you don't like, and that person doesn't want to change? You want to try it in. So how do you deal with that? Because
Perfect. So to repeat the question, she said that arch nemesis. What do you do when they don't want to change? And I love that statement because it is a very true statement. Because ultimately, the only person you can change is yourself. Which goes back to that flexibility in our communication. Usually when we have tried to influence somebody in a particular way, it's sort of like if somebody doesn't understand what we're saying and we go, okay, let me tell you again. If I slow down and get louder, you'll get it this time, right? And we wonder why that person doesn't change. Well, you're just using the same technique and being condescending now about it. So it's all about flexibility. It's not that, and again, you're not trying to change the person. It goes back to your influential intention. If your influential intention, remember, it's proactive and achievable. So if your influential intention is, I want them to stop being an a-hole, that is not achievable. Because first of all, the definition that you have given them is based off of your paradigm of the world. They do not see themselves as the biggest jerk ever. They think they are right. It's a beautiful thing if you've ever taken acting. The villain thinks that they're right. The villain thinks that it is okay for me to destroy the world in order to get these bigger gains, in order for this bigger value. Your mark is always right. That's why we try to figure out their internal world to then figure out what we can leverage. And I'm going to go ahead and keep going with questions. I just want to make sure we get over to, okay. So that way you can find me if you have other stuff or questions you want to send in personally. Yes?
Hello. Earlier you mentioned the identifiers exercise, just to sit back and see how people talk about themselves and
Yes.
identify themselves. Do you have any other exercises those of us who are maybe a little out of
Yes.
shape with this can use?
Yes, I do. So many. Again, this is a great way to just stay off your phone and focus on people. In fact, that's what this slide is about right here. This is ultimately the difference between influencers and non-influencers, is that most of the time we don't want to put in the energy, so we check out. It's like, oh, this doesn't have to do with me. Let me see what Twitter's doing. Because the truth of the matter is that everything we talked about today, and every other influential technique and observation takes effort. It takes energy and focus. People often ask me, are you just always on? Like, are you just always like reading people and everything? I'll be like, I wish. I don't have the stamina. It doesn't work that way. I asked the same question of a CIA agent when I learned about the detailing which they go through in observing their marks. They have dossiers on these people before they ever even say hello. And I was astonished by how much information they gather. And I said, man, your wife must love you because you know how to pay attention to the details and see things. And he goes, well, it's kind of the opposite because I know how to do it. And of course, she knew what he did for a living. She was also an officer. She would get extra mad at him. Because she says, I know you know how to do this. You're trained. But he would just turn off when he went home, which is natural. It's easy to turn off, but it's not always effective. So you have to consciously bring it into your awareness. Now, what will happen over time is once you keep forcing yourself to bring it into your awareness, sometimes you'll notice that you'll unconsciously get triggered. Like somebody will say something and I'll be like, oh, that's an identifier. All right, what else is going on? And that's how I've been able to do so much business during like cocktail hour at events. It's because something will happen, I'm like, oh, there's an opportunity. Okay, let's keep going and see what happens. So to answer your question specifically, other things I look for. A great tip for networking is pay attention to the feet. I have a YouTube video on this where I go into a bit of depth, so feel free to check it out. But basically, the feet point where they want to go. The feet are most closely connected to the limbic primal part of our brain for a number of reasons. It's a part of our survival system. The feet help us run, the feet help us be still, and the feet help us kick our way out of a situation. The feet help keep us alive, which means they are not as guarded as our face. Our face is the biggest liar in the freaking world. We learned how to lie at a surprisingly young age. If you have children, you already know this. So, in a networking situation, you want to see where people's feet are pointing. So for example, if they're in a group and everybody's feet are pointed towards the center of the group, that's known as a closed group. They are in rapport, they're in flow, they're chatting it up. There's not really room nor energy for somebody else to come in, and if you do, it feels really awkward. What you're going to want to do is see if somebody's foot is pointing away from the group. They're still in rapport, they're still having an okay time, but there's an opening here. Not all the energy is focused in. They're kind of checking things out, or they're thinking about leaving to go to the bathroom because that's where the foot is pointing. They're getting ready to go. And so that is your trigger to know, like, okay, I can approach these people. Especially if there's somebody in particular you want to talk to, this is how you find the right moment to not have that awkward that, okay, this is an open group and they're more likely to start communication. So definitely that, and there's a whole, like she mentioned before, I'm certified in body language. Could talk, that's a whole nother program. Yeah, I'll just couch it there just so we can get some more questions in.
Hi, I'm just curious, going back to what you were talking about with every human being has an inner need to feel like recognized and validated. What happens when your target or your marker has everyone paying attention to them, everyone validating them, loving on them, and you want to stand out, but you can't really, you can't fulfill them that way because they're getting that from everyone.
Yeah, great question. Oh, I love that one. So they are typically validating something obvious. You want to validate the hidden, the unseen. And there's a quote that I'm going to botch a bit right now, but surface connections are not as deep as hidden connections. It's some like yogi said it, and I didn't get it exact, but basically, typically people are validating like, oh, you look so pretty, I love your hair so much, and your lipstick looks great, and all of that. It's all surface. Where we truly want to be validated is in our values. Like if they value art, they want to feel like an artist. If they value learning, they want to feel smart. I'll put myself in as an example here. When I was single and out in the dating world, men might compliment my hair, my looks, and that's fine. Okay, thank you. But it's not what I value. This is going to go away at some point, and I know it. So it's not that big of a deal to me. But when they complimented my intelligence, or how I was able to see something or articulate something like, oh, let's keep talking a little bit. That's the validation that works. So again, it's validating the values, validating those beliefs. Great question.
So it's deeper
It's
observation.
deeper. Yeah, it's you're observing beyond the surface because most people are seeing most people are complimenting the mask that we are very good at putting on. Influencers know to pay attention to those little moments where somebody just lets you in just a little bit, and then over time connecting them to then make that presentation more powerful and impactful.
I've got germs. I don't want to touch it. My question is, you had talked about early on about creating your intention, so setting your intention with your arch nemesis. How do you avoid setting up false expectations where you think, okay, it's going to go well, and then you set yourself up, and then you go, oh, well, they didn't live up to it.
Okay.
How do you avoid that?
Great question. There's a few ways, without knowing the specifics, I'll have to kind of give a general answer. One is, again, you want to make sure that you're not trying to change their character. You're trying to change certain behaviors, and you might need to, ultimately, if you're trying to get them to change like how they perform overall, you might have to stair-step your intentions. So one thing that we talk about in IHQ and my coaching is you have your super intention, So for a CIA agent, the super intention is turn this mark into an asset. So get somebody to tell us their country's secrets for free. So that's the super intention. But below that are the sub-intentions of first I need to create rapport. Then I need to get them to do a small favor for me. Then I need them to do something a little bit bigger. Then I need to, so you're working your way up to that super intention. So see if you can parse it down. Great question. Well, thank you all. I'll just have some final remarks before we wrap up. As we talked about in the beginning, that influence is perspective with action. You have some new perspectives today, and your next action step is to take action. So look at those 3 steps, or those 3 people again, and figure out tomorrow, what am I going to do with one of my marks? What technique am I going to use with one of my marks? Ultimately, like we mentioned before, my mission is to bring the dark arts of influence into the light. Influence is not a shady thing. Influence is empowering. Influence means that you can help somebody else accomplish what they thought they couldn't. You can be the catalyst for that. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions afterwards, I'm here. Thank you so much.